It's a podcast recording. Feels like it's been a while since we did one of these.
Or anything.
Yeah, things have been interesting the last few weeks for us. But we're back again. This is Two Fat Guys Talk, episode... and in this episode, we're going to talk about things. For no particular reason, and in no particular order. My name's Carlos.
This is Dave.
We're going to swear a lot, and there's going to be offensive language and spoilers. Consider this your content warning. And without further ado, Devonil, you have the topic list in front of you. What are we doing first?
First one is Tron is the first Isekai anime influencer.
I recall saying it's the first Isekai anime, period.
Except it's not an anime.
Sure it is. The thing about that, well, how did that come up again? I was talking about how it seems like every second anime is an Isekai anime. And I'm like, what the fuck started this? And I think you're like, Tron. And then I said, like, is Tron the first Isekai anime? Let's talk about this.
Yeah, it actually started with me suggesting a manga I thought you'd actually really like, but it does have an Isekai start to it.
That is the biggest cop-out. Every Isekai story has an Isekai start. Because the whole start is, guy gets trapped in game with boobs.
Or summoned to another world.
With boobs. Tron had less boobs than it's the future anime that continued its legacy. No relation to Tron Legacy. But
really, it was the inception idea of things like SAO, like .hack.
Yeah, I remember suggesting, was it .hack that started this?
Yes, exactly. And then like, no, it was Tron.
It goes back further, goes all the way to Tron.
And I'm sure there were probably books and other things that kind of did the idea before the movie Tron, but Tron was probably one of the first multimedia influencers of said genre.
I mean, I wonder if when...
Oh, wait, hang on. I might be wrong here.
What comes before Tron?
Did Tron come out first, or did Dungeons and Dragons, the cartoon?
Oh, that cartoon. We've talked about that, right? We've talked about Sheila's thigh gap and all that.
Yes, you've talked about your perversions before.
Yes. Oh, man, because that's an isekai as well, isn't it?
It definitely is.
And it's about as horny as the modern ones.
I mean, okay, I gotta look this up quickly.
Look at
Dungeons and Dragons cartoon.
Yeah, find out the year on that and then compare it to Tron.
That was 83.
Uh-huh.
Tron. Haha! Tron was first. 82.
Yes. So Tron. Tron's the first Isekai anime, and Dungeons and Dragons is the first Isekai ecchi anime.
I guess you could make that argument, but only for.
I feel like
perverts.
We've time traveled to the past to find the answers to the apocalypse of the future.
Look, yes, there's way too many Isekai and anime and everything else.
And somehow you find all of them.
Look,
you have the most finely tuned Isekai sensor.
In my defense, I find good ones.
I will admit there's a few there that weren't total trash.
Oh, come on.
But I am going to say this. None of them are great.
Sure.
None of them are even good.
No.
They're serviceable.
Back your ass up.
They're remarkably okay.
No.
They're spectacularly average.
I disagree completely. There have been some good to great.
Absolutely not. So the thing about Isekai anime is that this is kind of a funny parallel to something we're going to talk about later about influences that have motivated something else, but we'll come back to that topic shortly.
I guess I didn't actually give you the link to that one manga I wanted you to read.
No, you talked about it. I'm assuming you don't know the title off by heart. It was about,
wrong way to use healing magic.
yeah, something about how healing magic can be used to kill people, and I'm like, then it's not healing magic. Unless you're healing someone's bones wrong.
Not quite, but we'll talk about that in a later podcast if I can get you to actually read it.
Sure.
But yeah, no, Tron definitely started that in multimedia.
Why didn't Isekai copy fucking the light cycles? Why does it have to be the fucking self-insert otaku incel storyline every time, and not, holy shit, I'm in another world, let's ride light cycles?
Kind of insulted you added incel in there.
Okay, here's the thing. Some of these main characters are complete and total losers who... They're just... Here's the thing. The pervert I play on this podcast is a character. These are real people who make this shit. And from how they write their women in these stories, it's very clear how they view women in real life. And much like incels, they view them as, oh, why can't they fuck me? I would have had sex if only women would fuck me.
I still don't like giving any of them the incel category.
Okay, fair.
That is a big insult that I won't put up with.
Okay, fair enough. Don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. Don't kill me. Don't gut me with a sword.
Look,
feast on my entrails.
You might be right with some of them, but let's not insult people just because.
Fair enough, but I think it is fair to say that isekai animes have a women problem. Oh, for sure.
Absolutely. As much as I like some cheesecake in my animes, they do tend to write the women as easy, uncomplicated, tone deaf kind of characters.
They're all just there to advance the man's story. Is the real issue. Because it's okay for a woman to be a sex hound. But when they're a sex hound only for the main character just because, then it gets into author insert territory.
See, this is also why I think you'll actually really like the wrong way to heal. Use healing magic.
Mm-hmm.
Because the female characters in that manga are not written like that.
That's cool and all, but where's the isekai anime where a woman's the main character and none of this garbage is in it? Like, I'm secretly holding out hope for that one that we have to see still. Do You Love Your Mother and her 2-hit multi-target attacks, where it's that kid and his mom that get trapped in the game and his mom ends up being this like wizard at it.
Yeah,
I'm holding out hope that that's going to be what I was looking for, but
let's hope.
Yeah, so
we haven't really gotten into this season's anime yet, everybody. Who knows how much we're going to actually get to.
This also isn't the anime rave. This is Two Fat Guys Talk. So there's going to be some crossover, I get it, but did we answer the question, though? Is Tron an isekai anime? And I think the answer...
It's not an anime, but...
Totally anime. It's animated.
No, it isn't.
It's partially animated. The Master Control Program's an anime.
No.
The Master Control Program's an anime boy.
Oh my god. No, he isn't.
It's an anime boy. It's got big eyes.
No.
Exaggerated facial features.
Okay. I'm not giving this to you. I'm just not.
He spins when he's angry.
Okay. No.
Can we say Tron? Can we say Tron is the first isekai partial anime?
No!
And the first real-life partial drama?
No, we can say it's an influencer of the isekai genre, but nothing in Tron is an anime.
The Master Control Program!
It isn't. That's called CG.
Yeah, anime!
No!
Did Lawnmower Man come out before or after Tron?
After.
Is Lawnmower Man an anime?
In some ways, it's better looking than Divergence Eve.
Oh, Divergence Eve. We still have to go back and watch that.
Yeah. Anyway, definitely an influencer. Definitely not for the better, based on what we're getting these days. But yeah, it was definitely one of the originals.
More light cycles in Isekai anime, less groping.
I can agree with this. Topic 2. We're now moving into Guilty Gear category.
Yeah.
This is Kai beats Soul. What the fuck?
So, I only discovered this recently. There are some after-story movies in a later version of Guilty Gear XR in one of the revisions that takes place after the main storyline of the game. And in a lot of ways, the storyline resolves a lot of what made Guilty Gear a story. Like, Soul's girlfriend got saved and is alive and well, and the gear maker has been revealed and has turned himself in for his crimes, and
we know that's going to be a giant Trojan horse.
But the thing that's shocked me is that for the longest time I always thought that, like, the Soul Kai rivalry was that Soul is a gear and Kai is a very powerful human, but he could never beat Soul. And then it turns out that Soul just comes out and says that he was never the one sandbagging, Kai was. Because Kai knows how to fight in a way, like when Kai sees Soul as a human, so he treats his duels with Soul honorably. Whereas when Kai fights monsters, he becomes the cheapest, most frightening Punisher type ever imaginable. Like, he will use every dirty trick in the book and murder people with no wasted movement. And we learned that when Kai first challenged Soul, Soul was actually horrified. He was afraid that Kai found out he was a gear and was going to kill him. And then Soul was disappointed that Kai kind of just held back. And then, of course, Soul decides he needs Kai to fight at his best, so he fucking insults Dizzy, Kai's wife. And then Kai, in one of the most beautifully animated one-sided fights I think I've ever seen on CG, obliterates Soul. After the fight, that Kai's like, yeah, that was kind of a change from normal. You didn't even transform, and Soul's like, you didn't give me the chance.
Well, okay, but there's one thing you left out there.
Huh.
Kai's not actually human.
Yeah, there's a good chance he's a gear, like he's become a gear that we've seen, but from before he was having sex with Dizzy on the regular, I'm pretty sure he wasn't a gear back then. Unless he was.
I'm pretty sure the reference and the history here is that Kai may have been a destroying gear from the get-go.
Maybe that would be a twist.
I mean, they also show that, when Kai was hunting gears, he was an emotionless robot almost.
See, I took that to mean that he was trained as a child soldier. And so, much like there's an anime we saw about a child soldier who became a teenager and he's kind of fucked up. And that's Full Metal Panic, right? Mm-hmm. And Sosuke in that show was also a child soldier, and where he found love and emotion and acceptance was when he abandoned some of his child soldier ways, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing with Kai. Maybe Kai felt like he was becoming a monster and didn't want to be a monster anymore, so he doesn't do what he could. Kind of like The Rock in that one movie where he and Sean William Scott fight Christopher Walken. And I remember all those names, but not the name of the movie. The Rundown?
The Rundown.
Where The Rock's like, when he has a gun in his hand, he becomes like the most
the Terminator.
Becomes the Terminator. But he doesn't want to do that because he doesn't want to be that guy, right?
See, we took it two different ways.
Sure.
I think Kai never was... Like, he may have been a kid at one point, but I'm pretty sure he was born a gear.
Now, if that's the truth, that adds an interesting wrinkle that has some narrative meat there, and that's that he's always preaching about how humans and gears can get along, and now the people of his country know that Dizzy wasn't normal, and they want her to marry Kai anyway. So what happens when it's revealed that the human who was preaching peace between humans and gears turns out to be a gear himself, right? That undermines his efforts and might lead to the people, revolting, but perhaps, no, they'll prove themselves better, and they'll be like, nope, you still are king, he's a good person, it doesn't matter.
Let's just say for a moment that Kai wasn't a gear from the get-go.
Okay.
And he's been turned into a gear either through his own means or by screwing Dizzy. Now,
can we say that a little less? Can we say making love to Dizzy?
Making love to his wife.
Like, and maybe he became a gear by just fucking hammering into Dizzy all the time. I don't know. It lacks a certain grace to it.
Sure.
Sorry, I interrupted your story at the part where he's reaming Dizzy.
Thanks for bringing it back around. If you can become a gear by having interactions with gears, that brings up its own story ideas.
Yes, it does.
Because what if being turned into a gear doesn't require sex, just blood?
So they're like vampires? Or like a virus? Almost?
Well, at that point, it would have to be some sort of nano machine that starts turning you into a gear through having sex. So if blood transfusions could be done like that, and the nano machines could get into you, turning you into a gear, I mean, then what's stopping the whole planet from becoming gears?
I feel like we've had this conversation before, but it was about Saiyans and humans.
You know, it's kind of the same thing.
Kind of, except I don't think, like, I'm pretty sure that Chi-Chi and Bulma aren't gears. More Bulma, because I'm pretty sure that Vegeta and Bulma fuck way more than Goku and Chi-Chi.
Probably. Anyway, back to the actual
Right. Guilty Gear. Now, the interesting thing is, like, I think both of these possibilities have narrative meat to them. And
exactly.
Either one is fine. If Kai, to kind of support a little bit that Kai might have been human, actually, you know what? This works in either one. I'm starting to remember things that make me think that Soul is not as powerful as maybe the consumers of Guilty Gear were led to believe. Because I remember in a story mode, in one of Jam's story modes, that she fights Soul, and then she remarks after she beats him that she's never seen someone run away so fast. And the implication at the time, I thought, was that Soul didn't want to fucking pound this poor woman into the dirt, so he just exited the fight. No, I think he lost and he was running for his life. Because
or he was embarrassed.
It could be that, because Jam is one of the best fighters in the world in that world.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a user of extremely rare and powerful ki, which is also rare. So, like Kai, she's a prodigy, right?
Yep.
It's possible that Soul can't beat her. It's entirely possible that Jam's a lot more... Like, it's possible that I have been overestimating Soul, and in a way, that's what Daisuke Shuatari wants us to all think. Wants you to think Soul's this big badass. No, it's actually that he kind of like in that anime Gangsta, he's kind of a fraud. He just gets away with it because he has all that power to put behind it. Like,
I don't think so much that... I don't think we're going to find out that Soul is all of a sudden a weaker character of the group. I think it's more that from the get-go, we've kind of seen Soul goes easy on people these days.
Oh, sure.
Like Soul as a character has evolved from being the kind of Vegeta-ish, I want revenge, and anybody who gets in my way, I'm going to pummel them into the ground, to being more of the fatherly figure to a lot of these characters and being like, okay, we'll fight. I'll win. I'm just not gonna like it anymore.
If you'll pardon my interjection here, I think there's a better comparison than Vegeta.
There probably is than Vegeta.
Yeah, and
Street Fighter, Ryu.
Wolverine.
Okay, yeah, Wolverine's a good one.
Wolverine, like Soul, started life in a situation... Soul and Wolverine have this in common. They've never been pleasant people to be around. And getting their powers made them even less pleasant. And now in their old age and potentially mortality, they've softened and mellowed and taken a mentor role.
That's pretty fair, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's more how it is now, because Soul doesn't actually have a lot of instances where he hits that anger threshold he used to really go all out.
If Kai is... like... Whether or not Kai was always a gear, it definitely seems fitting that part of his repertoire is to kill gears before they can kill him.
Mm-hmm.
So preventing them from transforming. That's a viable tactic. Whenever the Punisher has to fight super-powered villains he wants to kill, his preferred method of killing them is through a scope before they ever see him coming.
So yeah, no, I mean, even in the couple translated mangas that have come out of Guilty Gear, we've gotten a lot more of an open view towards the world than we actually get in the games, through characters that we never see in the games.
Yeah, for sure.
Pretty much.
And sometimes characters we do. There was that Kai manga that was pretty good.
Yeah.
So, next Guilty Gear game. Do you think we're going to get Anji and Bridget back, since they never made an X-Art appearance? And I think they're the only characters from the first 2 Guilty Gear games that we haven't seen in X-Art yet. So I hope that we get to see Axel and Bridget come back. And ABBA?
No.
Nobody likes ABBA. If you like ABBA, leave us a comment.
I mean, honestly, if those 3 characters never make an appearance again outside of storyline, I just don't care.
I thought you liked Anji and Bridget. I like Anji and Bridget.
See, I liked using Bridget's character, but there was never, I felt, really any meat behind the actual character's story.
There could be, if it turns out that Bridget is more gender non-conforming than initially thought. There could be meat there, kind of like how that one character Kum, who looks like this Goken old man, but is really a little girl piloting an old man suit.
Yeah, no, you could do more with the character, absolutely, but unless they're going to actually put in the effort, don't.
Yeah, I hear that. I'm looking forward to this new Guilty Gear.
Ultimately, what I'd like to see happen is, we know that there are, I believe the number was 7 treasures?
Yeah, there's the Fire Seal, the Thunder Seal, which has been destroyed, Anji's fans, which are one of the sacred weapons, a character who has yet to have a playable appearance, who is in one of the mangas, and 3 other unknown ones. That key that ABBA has might be one of them.
Yeah, see, now that we're starting... Okay, the Gear Master has turned himself in. We know it's going to be a Trojan horse, and it's going to lead to even worse things going on.
Involving that guy with the dreads from the new trailer.
With all that being said, I'd like to see them finally wrap that up, because there's so much more to this world's lore than just the ongoing gear fight. I mean, let's talk about the Magic Council. Let's talk about the world's treasures. The fact that, the Japanese have been locked up in their own dimension as being special.
That dimension better not be Blaze Blue, is all I'm saying.
Let's not go there. I don't want these 2 games linked.
Me too.
Not that...
Let them be their own things.
Yes.
Because Blaze Blue Cross Tag has been a lot of fun. And
Blaze Blue itself is not bad. I mean, there's some great ideas there. I just don't care. I'm sure if I jumped in and started learning the lore and everything else, maybe I would. I even own one of the games. I just don't care.
Don't. It's one big time loop.
Okay, thank you.
It's one big time loop.
I just...
Play Cross Tag. It's much more fun.
I can only pay attention to so many fighting game storylines. Street Fighter is already asinine enough. Guilty Gear is awesome in so many ways, but stupid in so many ways.
Mortal Kombat reset its whole timeline again.
Yeah, I just want to focus on Guilty Gear and the stuff that I've learned there, and there is so much more we need to discuss in these storylines than just the Gear Master. We're on game, number 12 in Guilty Gear, and we're still dealing with the same topic as game 1?
Well, let's think of it this way. My Hero Academia, we're still dealing with the same villain as we've been dealing with since the beginning. That doesn't mean its arcs don't have new things. It's just this story doesn't invent a new villain every arc. And there's nothing wrong with stories that do that either. So it's all a narrative style. I get it.
I mean, I'm glad now that we've gone to, playing through the game, you have the main storyline now. It's not everybody still has their own little storyline going on, but it's not that, you get storyline A, B, C, D, E kind of thing anymore. You're getting a main storyline, and then here's all these kind of what ifs or just what they're doing during the storyline. I like that.
It's interesting to think about how fighting games can tackle story. I think even just a year ago, I probably would have said, fuck it, why are we talking about Guilty Gear's story? The only thing that matters in Guilty Gear is how do the chains work in this entry, how much a bar does a Roman cancel eat up, etc. But fighting games are much more dimensional than that, and I was short-sighted, I'll admit. And there's a lot of interesting ways to present a story in that format. NetherRealm is the undisputed king of this, but there are other approaches that have worked. I think Tekken 7's is pretty good as well, although it has shades of NetherRealm. I even think the Street Fighter V story, the Shadowfall story, it gets a bum rap, but if you, like, I've seen a video of it, I haven't played through it, but I've seen a video of it. I thought it looked like a lot of fun. I thought it looked pretty good too.
I can't really comment on Tekken or Street Fighter these days.
Watch the best friends video of the Tekken 7 story. Fucking Akuma going up an elevator in a modern city to fight Kazuya as Heihachi orders a satellite laser strike down on their building. And that's not even the most insane thing that happens.
We'll have to do that sometime. Like, NetherRealms, yeah, I can't argue that NetherRealms just has their shit together when it comes to storyline these days. Guilty Gear has learned from that.
Yeah, Guilty Gear's whole approach is, we're not even going to add gameplay to our story. Here's the fighting game. If you want to learn the fighting game, here you go. If you want to do the story, just watch a story. Which is an interesting approach, to say the least. But, I watched it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm behind on the last, 2 expansions / major game revisions.
Jacko was a part of Soul's old girlfriend who turned out to live. The other part was trapped within Justice. And they destroyed Justice and freed her, and now she's fine again. Thanks to the help of a time-traveling Axel. Okay, well, that's great, but there's a lot of mini details in there I'm still going to want to learn. Venom and Robo-Kai were instrumental to defeating Batman. Robo-Kai had a major role, even though he was not playable in Xrd. There's another missing character. And right now, Venom is selling stuff in an alley, trying to keep a low profile, and Robo-Kai's head is his companion. Which Robo-Kai? Robo-Kai. The Robo-Kai. Yeah, there was a second one in Iska, but nobody remembers Iska. Okay, thank you. Iska also had, a dog beast. You know what? Let's not talk about Iska. Okay, I think we've talked enough about Guilty Gear this time. Cool! Next one is Masters of the Universe Revelations. Yeah, Kevin Smith is helming a Masters of the Universe continuation. It is supposed to be, according to what we've read online so far, a continuation of the original Filmation He-Man and the Masters of the Universe cartoon. The premise is something about how He-Man and Skeletor had a climactic final battle, and Teela is seemingly the protagonist who is piecing together something about it. Obviously, He-Man's missing. Maybe He-Man is missing, maybe He-Man's around, but we're still seeing the story from Teela's perspective. I just want to say a lot of turbo nerds who still want to hate on She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, which is one of the best TV shows ever made, and people should go watch that on Netflix right now. A lot of the people who were hating on that were like, finally, something true to He-Man! Including She-Ra's original voice actor from the Filmation show, who's a bit of an asshole. And all I have to say to these turbo nerds who are upset at Noelle Stevenson having done an amazing job with She-Ra is, do you know who Kevin Smith is? Do you think Kevin Smith is ever on your side for anything? Kevin Smith does not like it. Kevin Smith probably has already shotgunned all of what's currently available of Princesses of Power and loves it. Probably. He's an open-minded, awesome dude. Yeah, a giant nerd, a little obsessed with sex, but I mean, for obvious reasons, I can appreciate that. But, so the original She-Ra's voice actor doesn't like the new She-Ra. Yeah, she's not a great person. She was posting about how she hopes this He-Man is much more faithful. And I'm like, the original cartoon was made to sell toys.
I mean...
It was a toy vehicle.
And not just that. I mean, there were some actual genuinely good episodes of He-Man.
Yeah, there were.
In the original, but...
Like the one where Teela finds out the sorceress is her mom and then has her memory erased.
Mm-hmm. There were some really good ones around that topic. But I mean, they reused so much footage every episode.
Oh, yeah.
The transformation's a given.
That's an anime thing, too,
That's an anime thing, too. So I'm not going to take away from that. But the He-Man running sequence, the him punching a rock sequence, the deflecting a laser beam sequence.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, every episode, half of that episode was reused footage from somewhere else.
I was joking with some friends that this new Kevin Smith show should be just a beautifully animated continuation of that old Filmation show.
Yeah.
Right down to the one-shot episodes with nonsensical plots and the message of the day at the end about how kids shouldn't trust strangers. By the way, this is being animated by the studio that did Castlevania.
Really?
Yeah.
Have they said if they're doing more Castlevania?
Season 3 is supposed to have been greenlit, so I don't know. Then again, Carmen Sandiego Season 2 is supposed to have been greenlit, and I've heard nothing. Same with Dragon Prince Season 3. So I don't know. I'm a little jealous there because as much as I love She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, there have been some episodes that have just been gorgeously animated, especially in this latest arc, but one thing that I wish it had overall was better animation. But that's my minor complaint. It's still the best Masters of the Universe thing that's ever been made.
Well, yeah, not everything can be animated as gorgeously as Castlevania.
Yeah, no, it's pretty gorgeous. But no, I'm looking forward to this Masters of the Universe show. I like Kevin Smith. I like his work. And I'm interested in the premise, right? And
I'm just glad it's not based in the She-Ra universe. Don't contaminate.
I mean, I wouldn't have minded that if this was like a new take on He-Man that's supposed to be in canon. But I mean, that's a topic for another time too. We can talk about that when we do our She-Ra retrospective here later today. But I mean, no, I'm looking forward to it, and I think if anyone else has been waiting for some Masters of the Universe and you haven't yet seen She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, go watch it. It is absolutely fucking amazing.
Okay, get into some gaming stuff.
Yeah.
Sega is publishing a Civilization-like game called Humankind.
I sent you the link to this because there were features about it that I thought looked interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that you can pick your different cultural influences as you go through time, and that earlier units from different influences will update but will still retain their idea, so that you can have a weird mixed Egyptian, Roman, French culture by the end game, and that combat has its own kind of field and its own mechanics, as opposed to just the dice rolling of Civ. It seemed like an interesting title.
See, I dug into it a little bit because I am a bit of I do like Civilization 4X style games. My issue with this one, with Humankind, is it's kind of like they decided, okay, we're going to try and one-up Civ by grabbing all these ideas from other 4X games and kind of dropping them on the pile that already is Civ, and just hoping everything meshes into a solid game. And I gotta say, I have absolutely no hope it's gonna work. Not because I think the developers are bad or anything else, but I've seen games like this try and do the Civ formula, going to a combat on its own screen kind of thing. I'll admit, the whole mixing of like Greek and Roman and Egyptian kind of themes in a civilization actually sounds really cool. I think in Civ, when you take over a country or a civilization, you should be able to do that sort of thing. Because you're not just wiping them out, you're absorbing them into your empire. So that part, I think, sounds like a cool idea. The problem is Civ is already micromanagement hell. Now you're doing combat on a different screen. That was done in Caesar 2, 3, and 4. It worked with armies, but it bogged things down so freaking much. Because you could have, in one single turn, you could have fights on 7, 8 different fronts. I mean, that could take you your entire day in real time to get through all of these combats. And I mean, that Caesar turned those into real-time combat sort of things, because turn-based would have been, oh my god, I don't even want to think about that.
See, Civ 5 had a mode that I could never get to work called Pit Boss mode, where you could set a server and invite people, and people were emailed when it was their turn, and they had a good, 8 hours or something to finish their turn. And it would be cool if this game had it. I wish I could have got that working in Civ 5. I don't know why I never could.
I wish them well. I just don't have much hope with... These days, to have a really good 4X game, you kind of have to start removing features and do your own thing rather than trying to grab features from other games and do it that way.
I don't know. I think you can definitely copy and refine, the Isekai genre that we were talking about earlier, and the topic we're going to talk about very soon as well. But I think you can do that. I think great games iterate, and the Humankind seems like the innovation in it is that it's iterative in its own way.
I hope it can pull it off.
Sure.
Because 4X games have kind of stagnated.
I'm keeping an eye on it. This is not normally my cup of tea, but everything I read about it made me go, I played Civ for a bit. I got my Civ out of my system, and maybe this will get 4X back into my system for a bit.
Speaking of getting into games, we have a game that's causing, in my opinion, a lot of stupid controversy, but controversy nevertheless. Genshin Impact by Studio MiHoYo out of Shanghai.
Yeah, you showed me a video of this and some features, and I guess a lot of the controversy is that it's borrowing a lot of influences and mechanics from Breath of the Wild.
And the visual style.
Fair enough. Although the characters are much more moe than in Breath of the Wild.
It's obviously very much anime, though instead of calling it anime, the style is very reminiscent of characters from the Tales games.
Yes, that was my first kind of thought, and how funny that Tales of Arise almost looks like it's going to be that kind of game as well, right?
So I came across this one. The article I found was actually from a couple days ago with that video, but the controversy has been going on since E3. Because this game was revealed at E3, and instantly people were complaining, how dare you copy Zelda Tales of the Wild. Breath of the Wild, not Tales of the Wild. Yeah.
And I admit, when I saw the video and I saw the paragliding and the climbing,
yes,
definitely some influences came from Breath of the Wild,
and
for sure.
Even the fire and the grass that was started.
Yeah.
Those effects are Breath of the Wild.
Combat seemed less like Zelda 3D and more like anime hack and slash. I was reminded a little bit of the Dynasty Warriors games, actually, when I saw the hacking and slashing going on. So combat probably feels remarkably different, even if there are similar influences. I just wonder that anyone saying that this game is a shameless Breath of the Wild ripoff, which it's not.
Clone.
Which it's not. There's already a ton different. You're aware that Breath of the Wild is the culmination of a lot of other influences, right? Remember what I just said about iterating on ideas?
Yep.
Breath of the Wild takes a bunch of influences from multiple genres from around the world and meshed it into its own. There's a little bit of Zelda 1 in Breath of the Wild. There's a little bit of Western RPGs, I see a lot of Elder Scrolls influences in Breath of the Wild. And I'm not even a big Elder Scrolls fan. I know there are people who like to say, no, Breath of the Wild has nothing to do with Western RPGs. It was all a reiteration of Zelda. And I say bullshit. The original Zelda had no crafting system. It didn't do the weapons with durability. These are all very Western RPG tropes. Even like the gameplay with the bow and getting headshots reminds me of a lot of Western FPS games. And there's certainly Eastern influences. Like there's definitely influence from playing Zelda 1 for the first time and not knowing where to go and just treating it like an open world game. Or even a little tiny bit of stuff from software games with the combat, and especially in Master Mode where a mistake is your life. There's a lot of influences in Breath of the Wild. That's why it's good. But you cannot deny that it is drawing influence from other things. You simply can't. So to get mad at this game because it's a supposed it's copying from Zelda is stupid. Because
it's like the people who tried to complain about Darksiders 1.
Yeah.
Being, oh, well, this weapon's just like the hook shot. That weapon's just like this. Yeah. So? Just because games want to use mechanics that other games have kind of pioneered doesn't make it a clone. As long as you're doing your own thing, incorporating those weapons in and giving your own storyline, which, holy fuck, Darksiders 1 was, in my opinion, awesome for like the whole apocalypse thing and the way they use the weapons and everything else. Yeah, I mean, we're borrowing mechanics from other games, but Genshin Impact, number 1, looks like it already has way more storyline just in the trailer than Breath of the Wild had almost throughout the entire game. Fight me. The fact that there's multiple characters, dragons. I did see one of the scenes from the combat video. I didn't show you this because it didn't need to. But once you get off of the starting area in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, the Great Plateau.
Actually, no, even on the Great Plateau, there's that first skull house that you run into that has the boglins.
Yeah, the bokoblins and some explosives on the inside.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's how the game wants you to kill them.
Exactly. Well, the video for Genshin Impact actually had that exact same thing, almost sprite for sprite.
That's a little iffy. I gotta admit, that's a little on the nose.
See, that was one place where people were like calling it a perfect clone. But from what I understand, that was also them working within their battle system and trying to work things out.
Oh yeah, and you can do that. You can have influences. Like, there are times when you find code, like leftovers in game code that was from other things than other titles, right? Because you can totally import assets to kind of work things out.
Yep.
At the same time, that specific thing, yeah, that if that was made it to the final game, I'd be like, that's kind of shameless. But the rest of it, it's not the first time games have had climbing and stamina. It's not the first time games have let you glide. Because otherwise, Sonic Adventure would like a word with you with Knuckles. People need to get off Nintendo's... Nintendo fanboys are the absolute worst.
And
the absolute worst.
That's kind of the problem. Part of the outrage comes from, oh, well, they're copying the Nintendo game. The other part of the outrage is, how dare another system other than Nintendo get a game like Breath of the Wild? This is a PS4 and iOS game at this point.
Yeah.
No word of whether it's going to Xbox or Nintendo. But so what?
Nintendo fans generally just need to shut the fuck up. They're the absolute worst. Nintendo fans are the most anti-gamer, close-minded video game fans I've ever met. They love to make fun of Call of Duty kids, but here's the thing. Call of Duty players I've known are always game to try a new Nintendo game. The Nintendo hardcore fans will never try anything out of their fucking shitty little circle. It's the absolute worst. Like, there are some of them who hate the fact that Doom games are on the Switch. There are some of them when people were suggesting that maybe Microsoft could port Master Chief Collection to Switch that are like, why would we want Master Chief on Switch? That's gross. Like these stupid movie Bob wannabe little shits that are Nintendo fans.
Wow, now that's a name I haven't heard you drop in a while.
I'm pretty sure I make fun of him every 3 or 4 podcasts.
It's been a while from what I remember. You haven't dropped Movie Bob's name in a long time.
He's just a dolt. But yeah, like, honestly, I kind of want to play Genshin, to be honest with you.
When I saw it, I'm like, what's the complaint here? This looks awesome. And that trailer we saw on their website today. I mean, dragons, flight, multiple characters. I'm not kidding when I say there was almost more storyline in that trailer than there was in Breath of the Wild.
And yeah, Breath of the Wild, because I've now played Breath of the Wild quite extensively in Master Mode, which is a blast. Mm-hmm. I hope Master Mode's not a DLC for Breath of the Wild 2. I'm just saying that, because I want to play it from the get-go. Yeah, the vast majority of the story is in the flashbacks.
Yeah.
With very little in the here and now. The main story there being when you go inside Divine Beasts. So...
yeah, exactly. So, there's nothing wrong with that. Breath of the Wild is a great game. But that doesn't mean that we can't have games that use the same visual style and borrow influences to make a great anime-esque style game.
Japan has done this before. Dragon's Dogma is, in a lot of ways, Japan's answer to the Elder Scrolls games, mm-hmm. with a little bit of Dark Souls combat in it. Yeah. That's Dragon's Dogma. I don't recall people calling Dragon's Dogma a shameless copy. I remember a lot of people saying Dragon's Dogma is the better game. I'm one of those people. But despite any grief I have with Bethesda and their series, one cannot deny the influences. Nintendo sure knows them. It's partnered with Bethesda in having presentations in its presentations. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, there is... Breath of the Wild is not a wholly original thing. It's guilty of copying things too. And even if it wasn't, that doesn't mean another game iterating on its ideas is bad. People need to shut the fuck up.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now we go from clones and their false issues
to... How you know David didn't know how to finish a sentence.
We're going to move on to an actual controversy in this case. Ion Fury.
A.K.A. Ion Maiden, yes. Which got sued by Iron Maiden about the name, which at the time I thought, fuck Iron Maiden, and now I'm kind of hoping that they win.
Hello, just a little editor interjection, the editor in question being me, Carlos, same person who's talking to Dave. So, since we recorded this, 3D Realms has backtracked a bit on their apology and said that they're not going to remove some of the offending content and not going to be as harsh with Void Point as they initially were going to be and really should have been. Very disappointing, but regardless, the audio you're about to hear is from when we first heard about 3D Realms' actions, so it's not going to include said 3D Realms backpedal.
Oh, Ion Fury. For those who don't know, Ion Fury is a build engine game with a much updated and tweaked version of the build engine for that released, I think, last week. It's the spiritual successor to Duke Nukem 3D, and in fact published by 3D Realms and developed by Void Point. It came out last week that Void Point developers are horrifically transphobic, as evidenced by some of the conversations on their Discord server and messages that they've put out in public. And following transphobic people on their company Twitter, for example. They have also had transphobic and homophobic messages in the game proper in Ion Fury that 3D Realms has since said will be patched out. Void Point issued a non-apology for this themselves by saying that these comments were taken out of context, which is usually what transphobes say when they're called on their shit. 3D Realms, however, has openly apologized, said that the people in question are going into sensitivity training, and is donating a bunch of money from the sales of Ion Fury to the Trevor Project, which is meant to help LGBTQIA+ youths.
They're also adding in for any future developers, contractors, etc. Very clear wordage about this sort of behavior leading to direct firing.
Yeah.
And end of work. It's... And there are actually buried areas in the game you can only get through a no-clip cheat that gets even worse.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. I was looking forward to Ion Fury. I have no doubt Ion Fury is a mechanically sound, great game. It's a spiritual successor to Duke, and it's meant to have a lot of the same sensibilities, so of course it's going to be a good game. But it went from a game I absolutely had to play to something I'll maybe get around to someday, because my entire backlog is filled with 9 out of 10 games that I want to get to. I don't need Ion Fury on the list, especially if its devs are going to act this way. Now, what I find funny about this whole thing... Oh man, so when this happened, Ion Fury got called out by a lot of people, telling people not to support them, and a lot of people actually canceled their orders and asked for Steam refunds. So, of course, the transphobic bigot crowd that insists that they're not transphobic or bigoted then decided, well, this is wrong. And what I thought was going to happen is they were going to buy the game in droves and kind of cancel out the backlash that the more progressive gamers were unleashing upon Voidpoint and 3D Realms. Oh, that's not what these fucking idiots did. They took offense to the fact that 3D Realms apologized and donated money to LGBT causes. And so they too are now boycotting the game and getting refunds. And I tweeted about this. It's boycotting the same thing the libs boycott to own the libs. Good work. So, bigoted people have once again proven their immense intelligence and are now going to bury Voidpoint. Voidpoint won't survive this. And it couldn't happen to a better fucking company. 3D Realms is going to dump them the moment that they have to because they've proven themselves toxic and useless.
Yeah.
And they know they've been damaged not only by people who rightfully oppose them, but also by people who wrongfully hate that 3D Realms apologize. So good. Yeah, great. I am all for it when bigots destroy themselves. I'm good for that. But it's just funny. On Matt McMuscle's awesome series, What Happened, that's when I first heard of Ion Maiden at the end of his Duke Nukem 3D episode.
Mm-hmm.
In a year, we're probably going to see an Ion Fury What Happened. We probably are. And it's going to be so fucking funny to see this episode of Voidpoint just shooting themselves in the foot. But It's a damn shame, man. Fucking... It reminds me of the difference between people who think that Breaking Bad is a good show and people whose favorite thing in the world is Breaking Bad. Because the latter usually misses all the pro-feminist, anti-masculinity messages in it and takes it at face value. And what I think happened here is that these Voidpoint guys looked at Duke Nukem not as a satirical character, but as something to strive towards. And what's funny is Duke Nukem if Duke Nukem existed in real life, he would hate them.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so stupid and so funny and so sad.
In a world full of shooters, getting your devs called out for being homophobes is a death sentence.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be another shooter somebody can go to. Yeah,
like Doom. The whole fast shooter thing is making a comeback.
Mm-hmm.
The whole fast on your feet, super high-paced, high-octane corridor shooter is making a comeback. So Ion Fury isn't even needed. Its devs are transphobes. Fine, I'll go play Doom. Either the classic re-releases that no longer require a Bethesda.net account, or just the modern Doom games. like
for me personally, I'll go to Doom 2016, or I'll go to The Darkness 2.
And you know what else I could do? I could literally just play Duke Nukem 3D.
Yeah.
Over Ion Fury. Why not? There are ports of that game everywhere.
That's right. Okay, let's move off of some of the negatives.
Yeah, positives. I love positives. We're a positive podcast around here.
Yeah, right. Star Trek Picard.
Yeah, Picard.
This show's looking better and better every time I look at it.
Oh, when I saw that teaser, I just had a smile across my face. I'm like, oh yeah, Picard, Patrick Stewart still remembers the character.
Yep.
And we're not only getting new characters, we're getting returning characters. We're getting 7 of 9 and some crossover with Voyager that may or may not be respecting the Christie Golden sequels to Voyager she wrote that were officially published and may now be canon. We're getting a Return of the Borg, potentially. We're getting kind of a Captain Picard, Old Man Picard story, which I am all for.
We got Borg, we got Romulans, we got what I'm guessing is potentially either a Borg Queen hybrid / maybe Picard's daughter.
Maybe. In the Christie Golden Voyager sequel novels, there were 2 of them. There were more, but these main 2 were what took place right after the series.
Mm-hmm.
The main threat to Earth was that some renegade Federation scientists were trying to make a Borg queen, which was starting to turn humans into Borg.
Lovely.
And the Voyager crew had to kind of, Janeway in particular had to stop this, but Picard and the crew of the Enterprise was also heavily involved.
I'm going to have to check out these books.
Christie Golden's a great writer. She also wrote that Warcraft book about the trial of Garrosh. That is amazing.
So, there are a couple interesting things to take away from Star Trek Picard.
Yeah!
We may have yet another timeline split.
More timelines! You know what? Bring them on! Bring on the timelines. We all know through that Star Trek Next Generation episode that there are infinite timelines, so bring on the timelines.
I think we are, if I'm right, and they are disregarding the, at the time, canon graphic novel that told us what led up to the new timeline being made, with Spock going back.
And the Chris Pine movies. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got the Kelvin timeline, the original.
Yeah.
We've got the Pine timeline.
Yeah.
Which is the new one.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the 2 or 3 timelines that are currently going on in Discovery.
Sure.
This one may be a new one, because at the end...
We've got the timeline where they crossed over with the X-Men, the timeline they crossed over with the Green Lantern Corps.
No, not going there. Not going there.
We've got X-Men versus Star Trek, the Capcom fighting game.
The official canon stuff leading up to the Pine timeline being made had Data fully back, in charge of the Enterprise, had Worf in charge of the Klingon Empire, had Picard as an ambassador, admiral, ambassador, whatever, had Riker with his own ship and everything else. Like, we were given what happened to all these characters for that. Except for things to be like this now. Like, in the trailer, Picard is still kind of... He's going and playing cards with the Data wannabe. Data...
It's B4, but in that
you.
graphic novel, Data's memories were grafted onto B4, so that's how Data got revived.
Exactly. So if he's playing with B4, who hasn't become Data, the commander of the Enterprise, we're now talking the Picard timeline. So now
that's
we got
fun.
3.
Who cares?
Well,
let the timelines happen. As long as the stories don't... It's nice to have these interconnected shared universes like the MCU, but the thing that's the glue for all of these is that the individual components of them have to be good on their own. If they exist purely to be the webbing, to the connective tissue between other things, they fail individually. That's why most MCU movies are good, because Marvel knows this, and it makes each of these individual movies strong contenders. That they can totally exist on their own, and they don't have to be part of the greater MCU if you don't want them to be. So Star Trek Picard introducing another timeline, whatever, man. If it works in the context of this story, go for it.
I just find it funny that, we went from having one timeline to having two timelines. I'm not counting the negative universes here.
Fuck, Kirk has messed with time how many times?
So is Janeway.
Yeah, but
Kirk?
Janeway relished it.
Really? Kirk was a footnote for messing with the timeline compared to Janeway. The fucking time continuum police... The chief had a fucking brain aneurysm and tried to wipe her out because of how much trouble they were causing.
Remember that two-parter where she literally fought an alien whose entire thing was changing the timeline?
Yeah, exactly.
And he was played by Red Foreman from that 70s show. Mm-hmm. That was a weird kind of thing to imagine. And then there was the episode with The Rock, and he gave a rock bottom to 7 of 9.
This didn't happen.
No, this happened.
This didn't happen.
He gave a rock bottom to 7 of 9. He wasn't playing The Rock. He was playing an alien gladiator, but as part of the fight, he gave 7 of 9 a rock bottom. He wasn't the important character of the episode. He was more of a glorified cameo, but he was still there. We'll watch it after. He gave 7 of 9 a rock bottom! I was shocked when he didn't ask her to know her role after he did it.
I have not seen this episode, obvious.
I'll show you the video after.
Anyway, Picard is looking awesome.
Do you think he's going to get rock bottom? No, I'll tell you what's going to happen. Picard is going to double hammer fist at least one alien. And if Cisco comes back, Cisco's going to kill at least 7 at once.
I'm absolutely sure we're not going to see Cisco.
But I want to see him beat up 5 Jem'Hadar by himself again. I want to see Worf cower in fear at this angry Cisco.
I'm pretty sure Hollywood as a whole is tired of him
Avery Brooks.
And never wants to deal with him again.
But his bad acting is so good.
No. Speaking of acting and things coming back.
Yeah?
A 4th Matrix movie starring
Keanu
Reeves and the chick who played Trinity.
Okay, come on. What's her name?
I couldn't tell you.
No, really, tell me.
I don't know.
Is it Carrie-Anne Moss? She played...
If you ask me no other questions, yes.
She played Hogarth in Jessica Jones and the other MCU TV things on Netflix.
Sure, great.
Oh, what the fuck was her name?
Okay, I'll have mercy.
Why can't she be as memorable as Keanu Reeves?
Because Keanu Reeves has done things since then.
So is she.
Sure. Trinity, Carrie-Anne Moss.
Okay, I got it on try number 2. That's fine.
Funny enough, they're not bringing back Morpheus. Lawrence
Fishburne. Yeah, I'm surprised they're bringing back Neo and Trinity on account of
they're both dead.
They're dead.
Let's see. Trinity kind of got impaled through her chest and died,
and Neo got full Jesus.
And you see, Neo coming back can happen.
Now there are several scenarios that could explain why they're back. Okay, scenario 1: this doesn't take place at the end of the timeline. Probably not what's going to happen.
That would suck.
Scenario 2: it's not them. It's like an Alien 4 situation where it's not really Ripley. It's like someone made with their memories.
I guess.
So they're not really Neo and Trinity. They're more like entities who have their memories, but they're their own people.
I'm very sure that the is the Wachowski brothers.
Not anymore, because one of the Wachowskis is now a woman.
Oh.
And
right.
I don't remember her name, and I'm pretty sure it's just her. Yeah, because she transitioned, I think. Am I thinking of someone completely different? I feel like if I get this wrong, I'm being offensive.
Lana Wachowski,
okay.
Write and direct a 4th set in the world of the Matrix,
Oh, man.
reprising their roles as Neo and Trinity respectively.
And now I'm second guessing myself, and I'm wondering, is Lana Wachowski just a sister? No, one of them transitioned, and she's now Lana Wachowski. Yeah. Okay, I got it right. Right. Yes. So
Warner Bros. Been trying to bring it back for the last couple of years, but there was a hold up over producing rights.
Was it that whole Terminator fiasco where the one person sued the Matrix because they said it was supposed to be a Terminator sequel? You heard of this, right?
No, actually, this is the first I'm hearing about that.
Okay, apparently the rumor is that the creator of the Terminator, one of the original creators, was saying that they wrote the Matrix as a sequel to Terminator 2, in that was the future, and that Skynet's machines had humans powering the Matrix, and that it's tied into that world. Which, in a way, makes total sense.
Except it doesn't, because even right before, during, and after Terminator 2 in its timeline, they had done a buttfuck of different comics in the future where they had set that Skynet was literally taking the bodies of the dead, liquefying them, and using that to power Skynet's machines as well as their engines to get into space to therefore terminate life on a galactic level.
Dave, we literally just talked about timelines. In addition, do you remember Genesis? Because I remember Genesis. Remember when Terminator 1 fought Terminator 2 and changed the timeline?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. The funny thing about the Terminator timelines, though, is for the longest time. There was only one timeline.
Yeah.
Somehow. So the comics, all the events in the comics, all the side stories, everything else happened in the one timeline. There was no second timeline until Genesis. Even all the events of Terminator 2 still ended up with the same timeline. But yes, I hope they actually come up with a good storyline. Like, do you fast forward the world and the Matrix a couple hundred years where, the machines and mankind have started to rebuild the Earth? Or are you going to have this all happen in the Matrix again, but nothing's really changed? It's literally a Cold War scenario? Because I don't know why they were so happy at the end of the third Matrix movie, other than the fact they weren't wiped out. Because the machines never said, we're letting your people free, or anything else. It was, we're not going to wipe you out. So literally they're in a Cold War scenario still.
In the Matrix MMO, when it went down, it started liquefying people.
Maybe it's better that way.
We got one more topic to talk about.
Spider-Man.
Oh, Spider-Man.
Now, I'm just going to make a comment here right from the beginning. There is no way in hell Spider-Man is out of the MCU.
Okay.
Yes, right now there's lots of finger pointing and people are saying, well, he's no longer in the MCU anymore, Sony will do their own thing. There's only one problem. The MCU is setting up Peter Parker to become kind of like the Iron Man replacement. The MCU is going to need him around, at least in a cameo position, for the next 2 years, because as far as we've been told, there's not another Spider-Man movie in planning for at least 2 years. We know the next 2 years of the MCU. But that doesn't mean they didn't want him around for cameos or as a setup for the next big thing, because even Stark himself was setting up Spidey to be kind of his replacement. I don't want to get into spoiler territory here, but the end of Spider-Man drops a big one.
Yeah, I read what the spoilers are for
Okay.
that. So.
Well, I'm not going to say it on here. But that sets up a huge thing going forward. Like, we're talking Civil War from the comics sort of stuff.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying.
So, I mean, even the audience listening to this may get that reference.
Oh, yeah, no, I get it.
So, it's not going to be a break between each other. They will work something out.
Maybe Disney should shut the fuck up and just cave. I am 100% on Sony's side on this. For a variety of reasons. The first being that Disney has grown far too powerful. Maybe if Disney didn't actively fight to keep fucking up public domain laws, Spider-Man would already be public domain, and Disney could just use him without asking the permission because he'd be a public domain character. Thanks to Disney not wanting Mickey Mouse and their other characters to be public domain, they have repeatedly paid U.S. governments and governments around the world to basically kibosh those laws and extend the amount of time you have to wait for a creator's death so that they can keep profiting off it and nobody can use their characters. Warner Brothers has done the same thing with its own properties like DC Comics. Superman and Batman should have been public domain by now. Spider-Man should have been public domain. Disney can go fuck itself and they can cave. Mm-hmm. Disney can cave to Sony on this. People saying that it's Sony's fault are dumb. And yeah, it's kind of stupid that Sony's like, why make billions when we can make millions? It's stupid, but at the same time, capitalism is the worst.
Like, Sony...
And Disney's the one who can cave here. It's their fault.
Venom was, I felt, a great movie.
I heard that. I haven't seen it yet.
Because it was basically what if Venom was a buddy cop movie, but with a little bit more head eating.
Yeah.
And that was fine for this movie. Me and my roommate enjoyed it immensely in theaters. But I don't get why Sony doesn't just do a profit-sharing thing with the MCU and say, here's our characters. We will give you some input to make sure you're not butchering our characters that they have licenses for. But otherwise, sit back and watch the money roll in.
Sure, and I understand that.
It seems like Sony wants the whole pie for all this work when they could get half the pie for zero work.
Sure, and the thing is that, in the capitalistic nightmare world we live in, Sony's being dumb. But I've always lived more towards my, I'm constantly trapped between ideals and reality, and my ideals are telling me that Disney can shut the fuck up, and they can cave.
Well, and I happen to agree with that view as well.
And that maybe the next president of the United States can roll back the public domain laws to their original numbers so that all these characters can enter the public domain, and that other countries can follow suit so that we can actually use these characters in our stories that should have been part of the public domain long ago.
Yeah, it's never going to happen, but...
No, not until I become God Emperor of this planet, but that is a ways away still.
So yeah, Spider-Man being out of the MCU, not a chance. Too important. They've set... Really, in this case, Sony kind of has Marvel, or Disney, rather.
Sorry
not so much over a barrel, but with all the work that the MCU has put into Spidey, I can't see them all of a sudden saying, "Oh, he died," and he went upstairs.
Andrew Garfield is getting excited again.
I don't know why. They're never going to bring him back.
No, even though he was great. He was a great Peter Parker.
I had zero issue with Andrew Garfield.
Yeah.
I had problems with the fans.
Sure.
That hated that second movie.
Fan bases are the worst. I get a lot of the criticisms about that second movie. I'm of the opinion that it was great until the end when it kind of got real like, I get why they ended it the way they did, not knowing if they were ever going to make a sequel to it. So they wrapped things up. It's just they did it so fast. So many things happened in the 11th hour of that movie that until that point had been perfectly fine.
Like do you know what the actual original ending was supposed to be for that movie?
What was the ending supposed to be for that movie?
He's in the graveyard looking at her grave for that last time.
Uh-huh.
And his father comes up behind him.
Oh yeah, you were telling me about that. No, the ending we got was better. But I'm just saying it sucked that that's how they end things. I would have almost preferred it if they just ended it with the defeat of Electro and set up the Harry Osborn, and that never got used because they couldn't make a sequel to it. It's just, it sucked to... I know just because it was Gwen Stacy's destiny to die in the comics doesn't mean she had to be killed at the 11th hour in this movie.
I saw it coming from...
Everyone sees it coming. She's Gwen Stacy.
Yeah.
Of course we see it coming. She's Gwen Stacy. She has targets on every part of her body. Hi, I'm Gwen Stacy. She gets obliterated by 17 different arrows. Like, but it doesn't have to be this way, right?
The moment I heard that they had cast a character for Mary Jane, even before the movie came out, I'm like, ooh,
oh yeah,
dead.
No, Gwen Stacy is so dead.
If I had not heard that, I might have actually believed she was going to survive the movie. But the moment you introduce Mary Jane, Gwen's dead.
Yeah.
There is zero hope of survival. Unless you get really creative and go down the Gwenpool or Spider-Woman roles.
Spider-Gwen. Is Gwenpool Gwen Stacy?
Yes.
I remember reading the first issue of that, and is it Gwen Stacy?
Gwen Stacy.
Are you sure?
Yes.
You know what? I am not willing to die on this hill. Sure, she's Gwen Stacy.
Hang on. I just happen to have this magical thing called the internet.
Always a good time for our listeners to hear us typing and looking up stuff.
You can remove this.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, Gwen Stacy.
Okay, never mind. It's Gwen Stacy. I'm done.
Following the popularity of Spider-Gwen, this is an alternate where she becomes Deadpool.
I'm good with that.
So am I, because actually, she makes things even weirder.
But yeah, Gwen Stacy's destiny shouldn't always be to get killed for Spider-Man's advancement. It just sucks.
That is unfortunate. Absolutely.
I'd rather they just leave her out of the stories. Or Gwenpool. Devaniel, we've been talking for what seems like 5 billion hours.
That's how it always seems when you talk.
Ha! Do we have anything more to chat about this time?
I think we're good.
I think we're good. Folks, we're about to hear an outro. It's going to have our information. Go listen to it.
As always, thank you for listening to Two Fat Guys Talk. The Sword vs. Moonrod art is by the talented Red Caliber. Links to her Twitter, her store, and her webpage can be found in the episode description. Music tracks used were Bit Bit Loop and Good Nightmare by Kevin MacLeod, found at freepd.com. Be sure to visit our site at animerave.xyz for more of this podcast, and for Carlos and Dave Animery, the best anime review show on the internet. If you like what you heard and you can afford it, help keep us going by becoming a patron via the Patreon link on our site. If you can't afford it, no worries. Just spread the word.